Royal Mail workers have voted for yet more strike action over pay and jobs terms, which could have a devastating effect on the two biggest shopping days that lead up to Christmas, Black Friday and the 25th of November, and Cyber Monday on the 28th of November. Who invented these terrible dates? Tomorrow, the Fire Brigade Union will be holding an online members meeting following their 2% pay offer from the fire service employers, which has since been rejected. The union are now preparing to ballot members on whether to strike action. What is already clear is that this is an escalation of potential strike action. So I am joined by Paul Embery, a trade unionist and writer. Good evening, Paul. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Lawrence. Good to be with you.
You too. Now, look, the public are facing a choice between heating or eating this year, Christmas, and the economy is crashing. Are you telling me that they won't get a fire engine should everything go badly?
Well, I hope not, but the reality is that the Fire Brigade Union, of which I'm a member, I'm a firefighter, of course, is balloting for strike action. And it's balloting for strike action, Lawrence, I have to say, for what are genuine and legitimate reasons. Firefighters this year have been offered a 2% increase, one of the worst pay offers in the public sector. These are firefighters who worked throughout the pandemic. These were firefighters who were in the front line during the recent wildfires. These are firefighters who, like many other workers, have suffered poor wage increases over the last 10, 12 years. And for the fire service employers to come to us and say, you're only worth 2%, and we have asked them to improve that offer and they've refused to do so, I just have to say I think is completely unacceptable. So firefighters are really at the end of their tether, and they feel now that the only way to make the employers and the government sit up and listen, because the government is complicit in this as well, is to take strike action. Hopefully it won't come to that, but unless somebody puts more money on the table, then it probably will.
But so I completely understand the entirety of your point. Unlike a tube driver whose striking is just going to ruin someone's journey to work, a fireman striking, or a fire person striking, I'm not sure what the appropriate political correct term is, could actually cost someone their lives. Where does one draw the balance between fair pay and saving lives?
Look, it's a perfectly fair question. I've been a firefighter for 25 years. I've taken strike action on 4 occasions during those 25 years. And I can tell you, Lawrence, it's an agonising decision for any firefighter. You don't join the fire service to withdraw your labour. You join the fire service to save people. But, I just simply ask people to bear in mind the position that firefighters are in. At the moment, firefighters are struggling to make ends meet. Now, these are emergency service workers. They are critical to the functioning of our country in all sorts of ways. And we've got firefighters who are struggling to pay the mortgage. The firefighters are struggling to pay their bills, struggling to feed their family. And this is not a first resort. I have to say that. It never is a first resort. I mean, there have been long negotiations over this, as there always is whenever we've taken strike action. But we feel we're in a position where the government is saying to us, look, or the employers, I should say, are saying to us 2% is on the table, and we're looking at inflation of 9%. We're looking at our real wages having fallen by something like £4,000 over the last decade. It really is a crisis point for many firefighters, and they feel they've got no choice but to take that step of strike action.
So if I was to put you in charge of everything to do with firefighters tomorrow, what would you do?
Well, if I were a fire service employer, I would be lobbying the government hard to fund the fire service better so that they can make improved pay offers to firefighters. If I were a government minister, I would be making that commitment to fund the fire service. We're going through at the moment, Lawrence, the biggest pay squeeze since the Napoleonic Wars. We're seeing not just firefighters, but workers across the board are seeing their living standards crash. They're seeing real wages falling. People are struggling to make ends meet. And that is a situation that needs to be dealt with. Otherwise, we'll have more and more bouts of this industrial unrest.
Do you think that this may be the first spark in a wildfire of strikes across the country as people come to terms with the cost of the lockdown crisis and the unprecedented inflation and economic crisis that we are staring down the barrel of?
I think it's a situation that's going to intensify in terms of the industrial action that's taking place. As you touched on in the introduction, Royal Mail workers as well. There's also teachers potentially balloting, NHS workers. We know barristers have taken strike action. So these are in many cases workers who do not withdraw their labour easily, and certainly not as a first step. And I have to make the point as well, Lawrence, that these workers have looked at the recent mini budget last week, and they've seen what I would describe as the grotesque unfairness of the government cutting taxes for some of the richest people in our society on some kind of promise that the wealth is going to trickle down to the rest of us, which we're all pretty sceptical about for good reason. And they're thinking, hold on, what's the government's priorities here? Firefighters, as I said, on the front line in the pandemic, on the front line all the time, including the recent wildfires, are being told 2%. And the wealthiest are being told, there you go, you can have thousands of pounds extra every year in unfunded tax cuts. So with an agenda like that at the top of the government, I have to say it won't be surprising if we see more and more of this resistance coming to the fore.